The Pasco County DEC is providing this podcast as a public service in order to let you know more about the issues and ideas which Democrats have identified as being very important for voters, and also to provide a forum for Democratic candidates for office. Our podcasts are open to anyone interested in how Pasco Democrats are dealing with the important issues of the day. You can check out our PascoDems.com website and also on Facebook, Pasco Dems. And the views expressed by the guest and host on our podcast are their own, and not the official views of the Pasco County Democratic Party or Democratic Executive Committee. Our guest today is Democrat Kimberly Walker, who has announced her candidacy for the Florida District 12 seat in the U.S. House of Representatives.
I'm running because I'm not running because I disagree with Gus Bilirakis. I'm running because, he's not doing his job and he's not representing us. I don't know if you know, but my slogan is "Be the Change," and that comes from Gandhi, which is, be the change that you want to see in the world. And it really does come down to that, and that's what I want to do, is be that change, where everyone is treated equally, regardless of your sex, race, religion, sexual orientation, and sexual identity. A healthcare system where everyone receives quality health care. And a government, with the help of our businesses, that invest in its people and focuses on job creation, education investment, to help workers bridge the opportunities gap. So those are just some of the reasons why, I decided to run again.
And tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a software engineer. Actually, I wear many hats. I am a solutions architect, sysadmin, database administrator, developer. Anything that has to do with a computer, I'm your person. I can do it or I can figure it out. And because of my skill set, I've been fortunate to work in some great companies. I was an independent consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers. I've worked for the United States Special Operations Command, Joint Communication Support Element, both on Deal Air Force Base. I was a state correction officer. I served in the United States Army and the U.S. Air Force, a combination of 16 years. And, now I work for the Department of Treasury.
Okay, well, good. That gives us a good background. And now we'll go right into the main thrust of the platform. So I'll just ask you about various topics, and you can go ahead and talk about them. And the first thing we'll do is talk about health care.
Okay, healthcare. I'm pretty sure that you've heard me talk about my cousin Bette, who had a massive heart attack and died at the age of 49. She didn't qualify for the state Medicaid and wasn't eligible for subsidized health plans on the Affordable Care Act. And of course, Florida refused to expand Medicaid. That's why I support Biden's plan to expand coverage to low-income Americans by offering a premium-free access to states where they refuse to take up the Medicaid expansion. But if we're going to succeed in a society, we definitely need to ensure that everyone has health care. And I am definitely in favor of universal health care or a single-payer option. This pandemic has caused millions of Americans to lose their job, which in turn they've lost their health insurance. And seeing that happen, it made me reevaluate the importance of, getting rid of employer-based health insurance. I definitely will back the ACA, but I think eventually we definitely need to move to some type of form of universal health care or single payer.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised that when I was last year when I was running against Gus, I was invited to the COC, which is like a bikers group, and they're mostly Republicans. Actually, I think all of them are Republicans. I was actually shocked that there were the leader, the chairman or the president, who is a staunch Trump supporter and heavy Republican, actually felt that it was important that everybody had universal health care. So, you'll be surprised that there are some Republicans out there that actually agree.
I have a feeling that sometimes we paint both sides into such corners that there's a lot of misinformation or disinformation that happens. Let's ask you this question here. The cost of prescription drugs. What can you try to do about that?
So, there's a number of ways that we can bring down the cost of prescription drugs. I have been campaigning on reforming that, and forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. I always have a hard time pronouncing it. The patent system.
Okay.
Because you have pharmaceutical companies that are abusing it and they're stacking patents, and which means that they are expanding their drug exclusivity. I did read somewhere that Biden was actually looking at something that I kind of had an idea about, where when instead of them stacking the patents, it would only cover that part of what they're changing. And so therefore, say drug A, you have your initial patent and that ends in 20 years. And then you say you make a change to drug A. Mm-hmm. So instead of extending that life of that patent, that only the changes will be would be on that new patent, and it would only cover those changes. So drug A will be available within 20 years, so generic companies can pick it up.
Right. Okay. You explained that quite well. Now, let's go to another topic, which is very important to us today, not only in the U.S. situation, but here in Pasco County, voting rights.
Yes. We're just going to have to pass the voting rights bill. The Elijah Cummings one, and I forgot the name of the other one that we have. And to be honest with you, it's not going to. I'm just going to be frank. It's not going to happen because Republicans are not going to vote in favor of any type of voting rights bill right now. I mean, you have Republican governors, just out there creating these laws that are making it harder for people to vote. And so why would, your Republican lawmakers in Congress, pass a bill that would change that, with what they're doing. So it's going to take us, having to have a majority in the Senate. A 60 majority, for that 60 rule, because we're not going to get rid of the filibuster. And so, I mean, it's that's just what it is. And so we're going to really have to come out and, vote these people out. And, sometimes you have to play by the rules that they've established in order to beat them. Yeah. And that's my opinion. So, they say that you can't, give water or food to people in line, give it to them before they get in line. Right. Make sure that everybody is registered and have them continuously check their voter registration information to make sure it's up to date, so that when, it's time to vote, there's no surprises. Right.
Now, it's obviously in terms of the pandemic, we've all found that great number of people now are more homeless than there were before.
Yes.
What would you try to do to combat homelessness?
So what we're going to have to do, for one, is, Biden has given money to states to help out. And for the states, they're really going to have to come up with, more housing, and actually that's more federal government. We can create more HUD housing. For people who are homeless. And then we definitely need to increase in mental health. And finally, we have to, help them find jobs. There was a program that was out there for the military, for veterans who lost their job and due to the pandemic. And they would pay them some money, and then they can go to school and they can find a trade. Well, we do that. We need to fast track that for homelessness as well, for people, especially people who are unemployed, and looking for a job. Yeah. Okay. Now,
I know there's a couple areas you're particularly versed in because of your background. So let's talk about public safety.
Okay. So what do you mean? Law enforcement? Oh, excuse me.
Well, as many items of under public safety as you can. Certainly
Yeah.
law enforcement is one thing, but we can talk about other things, I think, in terms of our people out there who might be subject to being victimized, sometimes over the internet and other ways. How can we try to protect people in our current society?
So are you talking? Okay, so when you're saying, I'm sorry, victimized with cybersecurity, are you
Yeah, that
speaking
kind
of?
of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so there's two issues on that part. So you have your public with cyber that are being hacked, and the best thing for people to do is to do have long passwords and change them every 3 months.
Right.
That's basically I'm sorry, but for the businesses, especially for the ones that can affect the American economy, I actually have an idea on how we can fix that.
Okay.
Right now, they're telling them they need to harden their systems. They need to use two-factor authentication, which is good, but there's another way. So I, working at SOCOM and CENTCOM, I had access to what we call SIPR and the JWIX. SIPR is the secret part, and JWIX is the top secret, where all the top secret information is housed. And the only way that you can access that is to go onto MacDill Air Force Base or wherever that is designated to have JWIX and access it. And you can access it throughout the world. What we need to do is we need to create a separate one for businesses that we deem that can dismantle or create issues with the United States economy, and we need to put them on their own separate internet portal. It's not a portal, but it's what's the word for it? It's an internet system. Think of it as like the black web, the dark web. You can't get to the dark web by just typing whatever. You have to, use a proxy server and go through a whole bunch of steps in order to get to the dark web.
Right.
It's something like that.
Yeah. Now there's some other aspects of public safety, crime. What can we do about our criminal situation? And also, how about guns? What do we do with the incredible number of guns we have here in the United States? So let's talk about crime first of all. What plans do you have in mind for us to deal with crime?
So crime, sometimes crime comes from people who are desperate, and they don't have any money and they resort to crime. That's a small fraction of them. For that is just to, definitely try to create programs to, help them find jobs. As I worked in the criminal justice system, and, I saw most of them, and for the record, I was the state. So that's, anyone that has a felony. I saw repeat offenders, and those are the ones where we need more programs to work with them too as they get out. There are some programs in the prison system, but they're not a lot. And we need to increase those programs in the prison system as well. Getting for education and everything. So those are some ways to, kind of bring down the crime, in America.
I guess I would ask this question, Kim. Given your past working with people who are incarcerated, would you say that the majority of prisoners that you worked with were what we might call hardened criminals? No, they're not. Just a small few of them. Yeah. And we didn't, where I worked at, I didn't really see many of them. Now, if you're talking about because the ones that are really hardened criminals were at like in Tallahassee at the big state prison. But there were repeat offenders, and they can be hardened.
unless you, give them a way to be able to better themselves, when they get out. Because, a lot of times they resort back to crime because they can't find a job or whatever.
Okay. Let's talk for a moment about women's rights.
Mm-hmm. So, women's rights, we are, I, as a professional working in the IT industry, which is male dominant, I know that I had to work twice as hard as my male counterpart in order to, just to get a seat at the table, to be, looked at as somebody who knew what they were doing. So we definitely need to, I know that there was a bill that, as far as with equal pay for women, we need to keep up on that. And, there has been a lot of progress in, especially a lot of the tech industry companies where there are more women that are, in charge, CEOs and executives and stuff. So we have come a long way, but we definitely still have more to go. We still have a ways to go.
Now, clearly, one of the key problems in our society is a woman's right to choose.
Yes. So, when it comes down to that, that's my personal opinion. Really doesn't matter. I support the rule of law, which is Roe versus Wade.
Right.
And to be honest, it's between the woman and her doctor, and not elected officials, because that's her body. So I wish that we really didn't have any type of laws on that. I mean, it's fine with the Roe versus Wade. But, other than that, trying to ban abortion or even try to modify, I just think we should just leave it alone. It's fine the way it is.
Yeah. And I know there's another thing I read about your idea about women's rights and so forth. That I think this follows both women's rights and to a degree men's rights, and that is, you have suggested that it would be good to have comprehensive, medically accurate, age-appropriate sex education for students.
Yeah.
And
yes.
That it strikes me as that's a very excellent thing to try to encourage. I know that in European countries, particularly the Scandinavian countries, they do have good sex education programs, and thus they don't have the same kinds of problems that we have here in the United States. So probably appropriate sex education would be good. Anyway, now we're going to go to another big area, and that is the LGBTQ. And what are your thoughts there?
We need to pass the Equality Act for the LGBTQ. When I was getting married to my wife, I went through this whole process of asking all the vendors if they had an issue with servicing a same-sex wedding.
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, I was like, why should I even have to go through this? I'm a human. I should be treated equally like everybody else. I'm an American. And I hate the fact that we even have to have laws that say you have to treat somebody equally.
What was the response from the vendor community in terms of when you asked the questions?
I'm sorry?
When you asked them, would they have any problem in serving a same-sex marriage, for example, what was the response from most of the people?
Oh, they said no, they didn't have a problem. But
good.
we got married down in the Keys, so they're more LGBTQ friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to, confirm, because I didn't want any type of surprises.
Right.
But yeah, and because we've all heard horror stories where people are trying to get just a cake, and they want to deny a couple a cake because of their religious beliefs. And I respect everybody's religion, but when it boils down to it, it's just discrimination. They even used religion on African Americans at one time.
Yeah.
So I just I'm like we need to pass the Equality Act, and that would actually solve a list of problems that we have, especially with our kids, our trans kids right now that are having issues with, playing sports in school, so, yeah.
Now, as somebody, and I missed this the first time around, so I'm going to ask you now, as somebody who has worked in the police department in terms of incarceration, tell me about, you've got 3 or 4 ideas, I think, about what we should do in terms of our men and women in blue. You mentioned something about a national registry and Department of Justice and so forth. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so, to go on the record, I definitely hold, regard our men and women in blue at the highest. I hold the highest regard of our men and women in blue. And, and I'm also against defunding the police. But, there are, just like anything in life, there are some bad actors. And we definitely need to have a registry to the list of all the complaints and, records of police misconduct. I'll never forget Tamir Rice when a 13-year-old child walking down the street with his sister shot dead by a police officer because he received a report that the kid had a gun, which ended up being a toy gun. This police officer was ultimately fired, but he now works as a part-time police officer in another state. And so we really need to do something about that. Because it's just unacceptable. And then also, I am for increasing the funding of law enforcement, but what I want to do is by increasing that funding, we have more mental health services, and have social workers working with the officers, for crisis calls. So they, so we're not having an incident where police shoots down somebody who has a mental health problem. So there's a lot of things that we can do to support our police to make it better, because I know it's a thankless job for them as well.
Yeah, and it's in my mind, it's too bad that someone managed to turn that whole thing in terms of defunding the police. If they had simply said, "Want to refund the police," and therefore make as much money as needed for the police, but also for the social services that needs to be funded as well, I think we would be further along the line. All right, we're going to slip down a little bit now to a clean energy economy, and how do you go about trying to get federal clean energy standards?
Well, for one, we definitely need to hold our fossil fuel companies accountable for the damage that they have caused to our health and our communities. And we need to end these federal subsidies for them. And we need to support our rural economies by adopting a climate change funding agricultural conservative program. I know that there is, I remember reading a while back where you can use the manure from your animals, and it can produce, not electricity, but there's a way that you can use that in order to, I'm just kind of thinking it just came off the top of my head, but it is a way that you can use that and save on energy. Right. There are some trials on that. I don't think we do it here in Florida, but I know some states do. They work with the electric company, so we can do that as well. But ultimately, we really do need to start, taking it serious about how we're going to transform into more clean energy. Because look at it now. It's really hot outside, and
Yeah. By the way, now I've got a few more things here, but we won't try to kick them all today. We're going to talk to you again in the future about more specific things. But for a moment, would you please talk about this, which I think, in terms of the VA, in terms of maybe the general population at large, there has been an increase in suicide. And what kind of thoughts do you have that Congress should take steps to try to combat this problem of suicide?
So, suicide is pretty rampant in soldiers and in the VA, where there's a lot of suicides. So my plan is to, try to retain and attract more therapists, by giving them a competitive salary. Government really doesn't pay a lot, so by paying them what the private sector pays, and then also offering them to have their loans forgiven, that will attract more therapists, and also allow veterans immediate access to Medicare, just in case if they can't get a doctor now, they would be able to have access to Medicare, so they'll be able to get the treatment that they need.
Okay.
And then with the mental health, I want to expand it on for the National Guard and the reservists. They should have those resources too as well.
Okay. I'm just going to do two more things for today. The first one on veterans. You talked a little bit about your past as a veteran and so forth. What do you... I'll just say it here. As a disabled veteran, Kim has used the VA system after departing the military. Talk more about your experience and what the experience should be for those veterans who are disabled.
Well, I got out of the military a long time ago, but so when I was discharged, and for the record, my disability is only 10%, so I don't get compensated. It's just my knee that's covered. Mm-hmm. But so when I would make an appointment, it would be a month that I would a month away for me to actually see the doctor, and I got discouraged by that, and it I know that they have improved on, as far as seeing doctors, scheduling to see doctors, but more can be done. Now, I have started going back to the VA, and I have noticed that, they still lack technology, because like the lady asked me about my insurance my private insurance. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, because I didn't have it on me, and I was like, well, can I go onto a website to, update the information? And, they really didn't have any place where I could go and update my information. With the new generation of veterans, you need to have a website where you can go and update that information, because we're more computer savvy. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done to streamline the process and and help out the VA to make it a little bit more efficient. Right.
This last one it's only because really in the last few days we've been inundated with the news. What's your opinion about Afghanistan?
I knew that one was going to come up. Okay, so I supported having a small presence of special forces remain in Afghanistan. But that part I really won't go won't speak any further, because, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the background that I don't know. But what I will talk about is the drawdown of the withdrawal of troops, which was, a hot mess, Yeah. If it was me, I would have actually increased the number of soldiers before we drew down, and kept our special forces there, kind of like what Biden is doing now. Okay. But what we should have did earlier. We should have increased the number of forces and then started evacuating the civilians and our Afghan allies. And then you start, and then the military leaves. The military is always supposed to be the ones, the last ones to leave. Okay. That's what they should have done. Okay. But one thing I do want to say is that we need to develop better strategies on how we're going to prevent terrorist groups from, seeking to strike the United States, while we're overseas, we have a presence overseas, but we need to be very limited, because we continue to create humanitarian crisis. Right. Okay. And that's something that we really need to. And I feel very bad about the women and the children that are going to be stuck there.
So the final thing I will leave for today, and that is, if people want to support you, how do they go about doing it?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, KimberlyForCongress.com. That's the 4 is spelled out. And you can take a look at all the policies that I support. I have some new policies, and I'm currently working on some additional ones. Definitely donate, because, running a congressional campaign, you need to at least have $1 million to be successful. And so, even going to go into that one. But yeah, just go to there. And then also follow me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Okay. And I try to, maintain my social media and come out with stuff, every, at least every day.
Okay. Well, yeah. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank you very much, Kim, for your time today. And we'll be back to you in a few months as we get closer to the election, and some of the issues that are coming up then you're going to want to talk about at that point. So thanks again for joining us here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.